Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to the SOS Small Business Success Podcast. I am your host, Bonnie Bonadeo. Glad to have you with me here today. You know, we took a break last week from the podcast because I was actually in Mexico enjoying some vacation time and relaxing by the beach, dipping my toes in the ocean, digging my toes in the sand, you name it, I was doing it. Eating good, drinking good. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I enjoyed it. You know, I was in Mexico and felt good to be traveling again. I felt safe. Of course, I had to do a COVID test to get back into the United States. So you kind of knew you were safe in regards to all of that as well. And it just felt really good to get away. So I was grateful for that. And today is going to be a little bit of a different feel than what I've done in the podcast in the past. And that's only just because I kind of came back from vacation and I'm just kind of in this really awesome space. Plus, today is my birthday. And I don't really want to be working today. But I want to be committed to my podcast. I want to be committed to the messaging that I'm sending out and the clarity of the messaging that I'm sending out. So I am working today on my birthday, and but I want to share a little bit of a different message here than I typically do. Now, as you know, this podcast is always about building brands that survive while developing people that thrive. And I'm a firm believer that if you want to develop yourself and be a better person, go on vacation. Get out of your community, get out of your town, get out of your city, get out of your life, and allow yourself to just shut down a little bit. It's probably one of the most healthy things that you can do for yourself is to take time off and to get away. And I know that there's been a lot of fear over the last year and a half, and people aren't comfortable necessarily traveling or getting away. But I can tell you, I've been traveling all year. All of 2020, I traveled. I went back home to visit my mother several times, and this was before we had a vaccination. So even though there was a risk to doing that, it was more important that I was with my mother than not with my mother and my sister, of course, and the rest of my extended family. But you know, since taking on all of these other things in what's been happening in the world, I'm just a firm believer that you got to get away. You got to like shut down and rejuvenate and be inspired by the people around you, by the cultures that you're visiting, by the food that you're eating, the taste, the smells, the touch, everything. Everything can be inspirational when you just take a little bit of time to be able to get away. So that's my recommendation for today is get out of town. Get out of town, go on vacation, make some things happen. All right. So even though today, I went a little too fast. Even though today is a sales conversation in regards to this, I'm going to reference it to trust. So our topic today is trust leads to, and I want you to think about how you would answer that question and what you would say about trust in order for it to have some connection to you. Okay. Now, here's how they define trust. I always like to be clear on, you know, how the world is defining trust. It's a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. And in today's society, I think trust is very broken. And I think that it's sketchy. I think there's a few bit of trust pieces out there, but I think that there's a lot of mistrust out there in today's world. Not just here, not just in business, not just, you know, in relationships and in, you know, politics and everything, but just in general, trust is missing. And I think that we just really have to bring it back. And I think that over the years, we've trusted certain ways of doing things, and they're kind of, this whole cancel culture is kind of saying, okay, we can't trust them anymore. And it's leading us to look at our beliefs and the things that we've always known to be true and start to question them. And when we become a society where we're questioning things, we don't always have the ability to step up and be the leader. We sometimes choose to follow instead of lead. And we'll look for what other people are thinking, other people are believing in, other things that people are trusting, and then we'll jump on that bandwagon in there. Not bad, not good, maybe indifferent, but sometimes you have to be able to step away and really internalize where you're at in order to trust yourself, trust what you believe, trust what you know. And I think there's two parts to that. One is a complete educated trust. You've done the research, you understand the variables and the variances. And then the other one is the intuitive side of trust. You feel something more in regards to this belief than that belief, okay? And it's not necessarily influenced by what is going on around you or what's going on in society. So when I see trust in business, I see people going onto these forums and asking questions and relying on hundreds of people to provide them answers that may not be what they think or feel is maybe the best approach to do it. Always ask yourself first in regards to creating and building trust of the direction that you want to go versus immediately putting it out to other people, because you're going to get too many variants. You're going to get too many choices. And then you're going to go back and question yourself again on what should I do? How should I handle this type of thing? Trust is not always about someone else being right and someone else being wrong, but trust is definitely looking at who are the companies, who are the people that I want to follow, who are the ones that are making sense to me and resonating with my internal belief system, not my external belief system, okay? A lot of times I have to shut that down because all of us as humans can be easily influenced by what's going on, but based on what someone's saying, based on what news is saying, based on what government is saying, all of that stuff that can be easily influenced. So you want to go to your internal guidance. So that's your internal GPS system, okay? Not necessarily the external one at this point to be trusted. But listen, this is a sales conversations too, because trust is what's going to lead to sales. Trust is what's going to lead to more business. Trust is what's going to lead to you being more fruitful. And that all kind of like rolls around sales. Now, in all the textbooks and everything that I've learned, and I was a sales trainer for many years and loved it, loved teaching sales, loved doing sales. And it's led us to believe that most positive sales, most successful sales are built on relationships. And relationships is something that's been kind of fragmented now over the last year and a half, especially with COVID and the pandemic. How do we master this relationship building approach in this digital world? And and with less connection, not the tech kind of connection, but the human kind of connection. We're not connecting from a human standpoint with people in order to build trust, in order to increase sales. And I'm going to say sales could be more love, more money, more success, whatever those things are. It's a selling process, right? So I think one of the most confusing words today in our digital landscape is connected. We've used the word, you're connected. Even now when I click on Zoom and I'm recording this, it's like, you are now recording. And it's like, okay, I'm connected, I'm recording. But connection in the technical world and connection in the real world are two very different things. And we could say we're more connected than ever. We have access to more information than ever. But the broader we go, the less human touch that's happening and human connection that's getting more difficult to trust in a sense. So we have to be able to look at, trust as, how do we build trust? How do we increase our bottom line? How do we get more clients? How do we get more staff? And trust is going to be a word that's going to show up in these conversations all the time. Okay. So we used to trust products. So there would be a commercial on TV and it would say it's the number one selling product, or it would say, 5 out of 7 dentists refer this. And that used to be kind of like, okay, well then that's the product that I need to get because, it has this credibility behind it. Okay. Then it used to be that service was the trust. Like the better the customer service you could give, the more you could trust that particular company. And so it wasn't so much that they offered the best product, it was that they treated me the best. Okay. So there was when we went from products being trusted to service being trusted. And today it's based on outcomes, which I'm not sure is the healthiest approach to connecting trust to our world here. We're looking for outcomes. Who can do it the fastest? Who has the most followers? How can I get these outcomes? How can I match what they're doing? How can I make $1 million as fast as they are? How can I go from 1 million to 1 billion? We're in this society today that we want outcomes. So we may not order from a particular company if all of a sudden we're not going to get the product for 5 to 7 days. We might buy a lesser product, or maybe not as brand name of a product, because so we can get it on Amazon because we want it today or tomorrow. So that's kind of where we're at in society today is outcomes. So if you look at some of the challenges that we're facing in business today, clients having high expectations, clients thinking that they can negotiate with us, and you look at, another challenge that we're facing today is lack of staff, lack of, all these restaurants that are just having a really hard time finding help, companies that are far behind their typical forecasts because they don't have the help that they need. And everything that was shut down in 2020 is now coming to fruition of the outcomes that we're facing. We don't have product parts and pieces. We don't have ingredients. We don't have pieces and parts. Look at the cost of lumber. Look at the cost of gas now. All of these things are based on outcomes of something that happened previously. So you have to be able to look at what are you doing today and what outcomes are a result of that. Okay, what are you doing today in your business and what outcome is a result of that? So if you're at this point where you're fully booked, but you're not taking care of being able to book clients into the future, then into the future, your outcome might be that you're not going to be busy or you're going to lose clients. See the yin and the yang of that? Well, products, services, and outcomes is kind of the same thing from when we talked about in the days where I did a lot of sales and marketing trainings. When we talked about features, advantages, and benefits, it used to be that when you bought a product, it was because it had this special ingredient that, helped this, changed that, eliminated this, that type of thing, right? And we thought that this feature, this particular part of why that product was so great was why we needed to buy it. When it went to services, it kind of went to the advantages. It's like the advantage of coming to us, even though we may not be the best. And it's not even about whether we're the best or not the best. It's that we're just going to create this opportunity for you to feel good, look pampered, walk out, satisfied type of thing. And then that was considered the advantages of why they would do business with you. And then the outcomes kind of relates to this, the word benefits. What is the benefit? People are wanting instant gratification today. And this instant gratification today that they're doing is creating a new way that we're having to do business. And it's changing the dynamics of how we're able to be consistent doing business moving forward. So all of this is kind of the same philosophy. We're just using different words and different terminology today to do that. But it's all a foundation of trust, right? It's all a foundation of trust. Do you trust my business? Do you trust me? Do you trust the process? Okay. And as I said, as I shared with you guys today earlier, today's my birthday, so I'm wanting to have a different conversation with you, not having it be overly business. But today is also my 40th anniversary of being a licensed cosmetologist in beauty. And 40 years pretty much says that I've got some credibility. It pretty much says that I've had some consistency here, even though I've done played a lot of different roles, had a lot of different positions, learned a lot of different levels of this industry. I have not spent 40 years behind the chair, so I'm not the expert of, being the hairdresser behind the chair, but I am an expert in all things beauty. And because I've played a role in all of these particular areas here. But I'm celebrating this today, not just my birthday, but I'm celebrating my 40th anniversary in beauty, because we have to go back and look at trust as a viable content maker to build the life we want, not just the business we want, to be able to build the life that we want. And I put together some opportunities here of so how do we build trust? How do we build trust today? Well, we have to remember that trust is built based on stories over beliefs. Okay. Your story is your truth. Other people's stories are their truth. And it's better than just believing what's being told out there, because we can articulate, dictate, and alter narratives all day long. But people's truths and their stories is how we build trust today. So remember that, I just did a masterclass on story building, how to build your brand with stories. And all of it is making sure that you understand that you can sell based on stories. You can grow based on stories. You can prosper based on stories. Authenticity over corruption. And geez, that one's just becoming true to life globally, not just here, but globally, that we have to find these moments of feeling far more authentic in how we're putting ourselves out there than buying into some of these beliefs or corruption that's going on. We still want to look at authority over inferiority, okay? So an authority kind of is, I'm really going to trust the person that's done it, that has had the success that I want to mirror. I'm really going to trust the person that has the time invested in it. I'm really going to trust the person that understands me and is like-minded like me, okay? Versus people that are going to make you feel inferior to what you don't know or what you haven't accomplished, okay? And then, of course, collaboration over power. We need more of us to come together with like-minded values, like-minded approaches, like-minded connection, versus just trying to be better than everybody else or more powerful than anybody else. And then, of course, ultimately, we want to have more values over greed, okay? What are your values? Because this is what's going to be your major selling point and building trust in the future. So here's my 10 things that I think will help you build trust and to help you create that life of prosperity that you're looking for. One is shared values. You have to be able to kind of look at what your values are. Find that moment. So when I'm coaching my clients, one of the first things that we do when I'm working with a new client is we establish what their values are, because I kind of need to know where they're putting their energy, where they're putting their focus. And also sometimes their values, and when their life is not in alignment with what's happening. Okay, so things aren't going well at work, their business isn't prospering, their relationships are unhealthy at this point. It's usually in a foundation of values. So we really have to look at what these values are and how these values represent you moving forward. And when you can understand your true values, these core values that are non-negotiable pieces of who you are, it also develops then into that personal brand identity. They're not the same, but they are a building block to each other. Okay. Values would be your foundation. Brand would be what I'm representing myself as out there based on my values. All right. Number 2 would be to show and be consistent. So show consistency and be consistent. That's probably a really valid point to building trust. You can't like show up and then go away, show up and go away. And that's hard today because, I can show up and I can be as consistent as I can, but now I'm also fighting algorithms and, am I having to buy ads versus try to just do organic approaches to being able to continue to build my business. But even in me and my personal life, it's important to have a consistent way of being, and so that people can trust me. Be empathetic. This is critical. This is critical to how we're going to move forward and prosper as, humanity, is to be empathetic to what's going on in the world, to not be judgmental, to eliminate this cancel culture approach, because that is the opposite of being empathetic. And then, of course, tell the truth. Honesty is a really good policy to have. Tell the truth. In marketing today, one of the things that they say is that if sales was based on relationships in the past, you got to know somebody, they trusted you, they eventually bought from you. And then we looked at the sales process of, people bought things based on product ingredients or product features. Then they went to service approaches, service advantages. And then now it's all about outcomes. Well, when you're looking at outcomes, there's a lot of variables in that. And if you're not telling the truth of how people are going to achieve the outcomes, and we're trying to sell digitally today versus in person or with the human connection, then telling the truth or lying is a lot easier to do in these cases. We can be very deceitful in our approaches to being able to help people and make claims of what we can offer them. So you got to tell the truth, because it'll come back to haunt you. And then, of course, number 5 is be emotionally intelligent. And I'm an emotional intelligence coach, speaker, facilitator, and I've worked in this arena for 10 years. My foundation of all my coaching, of all my speaking, of all my training, everything is based on an emotional intelligence. And I can tell you that it's changed my life. So if you don't have an understanding of it, I'd love to share more with you about emotional intelligence. Okay. Because it kind of falls into number 6, which is find human connection. Don't just, be it, find it in other people and make that connection happen so that you can continue to grow and prosper, because we do need each other. No bones about it. We do need each other. Number 7 is create clarity. If you want people to trust you, you have to create clarity in your messaging, in your communications, in your expectations and your deliverables. And clarity is probably not that easy to do today. And, we kind of like are making the assumption that people should know what we offer, know what we're expected. So in that kind of that phrase that I hear a lot in the beauty industry is charge your worth. Okay. I hear it in the coaching world too. Charge your worth. Well, charging your worth doesn't create any clarity to a customer. It's not a benefit forward trust statement at all to say charge your worth to somebody. If somebody doesn't have the experience, they don't have the time invested in it, then they're not creating this opportunity to charge their worth, and then there's no clarity in that statement in there. Number 8, have integrity. And just be your word. There's just no other way to say that. You have to know the definition of integrity you don't need to explain it. Number 9, showcase vulnerability. I think our younger generations are definitely more in tune with this versus, my generation, Gen X and Boomer generations. Showcase vulnerability. Yeah, like today, just even telling you guys that it's my birthday or that I've been in this industry for 40 years is slightly vulnerable because, you know how we are. I don't even feel like I'm 40 years old. So how can I be saying like, oh my God, I've been doing something for 40 years. And then we look at it from that place and then we think I should be further along. I should have more money. I should have more success. I should. And then that vulnerability piece, we allow it to lead us to a place that says we're not good enough. We're not doing things well enough. But the truth of vulnerability is that I've been in this for 40 years and I have had major success and massive failures in what I've done. I've tried things, they haven't worked. I've tried something else, it's worked. I've kind of gone back and forth in all of this. And even to this day, I really have to be present to my own level of vulnerability to be even sharing with you on screen, on camera like this, in a podcast, to hear my voice. This is vulnerability right here. And then of course, number 10, you cannot, not make this statement here. If you want to build trust, you got to live by the golden rule. Okay. Because we are not living by the golden rule. A lot of us are not, do unto others as you would do unto yourself. So, we need each other and we have to be able to find ways to be better for each other and better for ourselves, because trust is life. And when we receive trust for ourselves, believe in ourselves, trust ourselves, when we believe in others and we trust others, that's when we get happiness. That's when we get money. That's when we get success and, sales. This is when we get love. This is when we get family. This is when we get peace and tranquility. This is when we get the gifts. Trust is going to provide us the gifts, but we all have to figure out ways. If we're not trusting ourselves, we've got to start there. If we're not trusting others, we have to look at ourselves as to why we're not trusting others. And again, there's always a story behind that. So I'm going to go back to, stories as one of the ways that we can continue to build trust. Share your story. Find ways to share your story. Okay. Now, I appreciate those of you that have been following me on here, that have been listening to my podcast, those of you that have been sharing my podcast. I'm grateful and thankful today to be able to say, life is good. And I'm fully in a place of trusting the way that my future is going. I'm trusting the directions of things that I'm working towards in my life. And I'm full of gratitude today. So thanks for listening. And I'll see you guys next week at the SOS Salon and Small Business Podcast and Coaching.